All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
And good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. We're now 1 month into this year's legislative session. Lawmakers will release their initial budget numbers in days, and we're still watching for action on property tax relief. Here's what Indiana's House leaders had to say.
Starting to become more busy. Obviously, we've seen committee meetings, lots of bills coming through. We're going to have approximately 40 on the calendar for next week, and we're excited about our agenda bills. 1005 went through with strong bipartisan support. An issue I care a lot about is how we increase the housing stock in our state, and working with our local and partners on that. I'm sure you're going to ask me about 1008, and Representative Manning and our team is working with NPERS, and we'll find the right landing spot. You're going to see that bill next week, and as we continue conversations, we're going to get that bill across the finish line. And then obviously, it's hard to believe, but next week we'll roll out the House Republican budget. We look forward to that. Chairman Thompson, the committee has done really good work. They've got some final decisions to make, and we look forward to presenting it next week. You'll see an amendment that tightens up some language that I think, clarifies what the intent is, which is to maximize returns without getting into political and social issues. And so, we feel good. We've had good conversations in the last couple of days, more today, and I'm sure more tomorrow. But we want to maximize returns too, and we'll get there.
How closely do you anticipate the House Republican budget tracking with what the governor proposed, especially when it comes to some of the big ticket items like education, health, textbook fees?
I think closely. I think we've always had a good partnership with Governor Holcomb, and look, he listed a huge list of priorities this year, and I think we'll accomplish many of those, and we'll have a few maybe different priorities, but that's okay. The process works. He presents his budget, we present ours. I'm sure our Senate colleagues will have some ideas too, then we'll mesh it up at the end. I've been pretty clear, I think, in the past that I'm fine with it being noted. If you want to identify who your political party is, and that's on the ballot, I'm fine with that. I think we're going to have an interesting caucus conversation over the next week about where we end up on this bill. We've got members all across the spectrum on this. Totally against wanting to making local control. We're going to have to work with the clerks to figure out what's possible and what isn't. So, this is one of those bills that, it doesn't split along party lines. I think it depends on your community and those types of things. I think Chairman Wesco and Representative Prescott are trying to find a way to provide more local options to it, and we'll see where we end up. But I've said, I've been pretty clear through the last few years that if somebody wants to declare their party affiliation, I think you should be able to do it on a ballot. Representative Thompson Chairman Thompson's working through some issues for 2024 in one of his House bills, we've had lots of conversations with DLGF. And the biggest challenge we have is literally people are going to get their property tax bills in the next week, in the next month. I think actually April 10th is the last day they can be in somebody's mailbox. So we're trying to work through that with DLGF for as many options as possible. We, obviously for somebody that's always believed in tax relief, we want to look to find tax relief in some way or another, whether it's on property taxes or something else.
Is that possible for this?
That's going to be that's the challenge that we're facing right now, to be honest with you. Again, I'm a guy who believes in tax relief, and we've sent out multiple taxpayer refunds, we've cut rates. I think, we need to provide some tax relief. It may not be specifically on that, but for other issues.
Very pleased with that with regards to Representative Moat's House Bill 1157, creating new residential housing programs in Marion County. Representative Bauer mentioned that last week in her House Bill 1219 with regards to the funding for PFAS, and House Bill 1449, authored by Representative Harris, with regards to the 21st Century Scholar Program, trying to get more kids automatically registered. It sounds like it's running into trouble. It's been bouncing around Ways and Means, then off the calendar. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, I think we're trying to, I think what I've seen anyway from the bill, what Republicans are trying to do is sort of answer some of these cultural war issues that they're trying to, that they've been questioned about, and so they're putting their answers into this bill, and it's obviously going to cost a lot of money. So there's some issues there I think they're running into. I'm not sure what kind of amendments are actually going to help lower the $6 to $7 billion loss that they're looking at, but we'll see.
To that point, more broadly, before this session and when the session began, you said you wanted to see fewer of these social issues come up. We've got the ESG legislation. We've got several bills dealing with transgender issues. Do you see those issues raising their heads again the way they did last session?
It looks like it. I mean, in what I've seen this week, and the idea was, or my concerns going into, look, this is a budget year. We have higher priorities that we should be focusing on with regards to fully funding public education, pre-K, a big healthcare initiative. So we have a lot more important things to work on than some of these things that I think that are starting to come up right around Valentine's Day. And so we'll see where they go. But it sounds like we had 40 bills, committee reports that were adopted today that'll be on second reading. I haven't a chance to look at all of them, but I know it sounds like some of them are kind of getting into that cultural war lane, which I was hoping that we could avoid. It could be a little difficult, as you mentioned. This is going to be for next year, unless there's some sort of, it can be hard. Unless there's I was thinking a homestead credit or something like that. We'll see. We'll kind of work through that. I know our Ways and Means folks recognize the issue of the property values and taxes going up, so we'll see what we can do on that. But it's going to be kind of difficult.
All right, coming up next, a top state lawmaker gets an up-close view of the biggest political event of the year. Welcome back. Imagine getting invited to the State of the Union by someone who's not a member of your own political party. That's exactly what happened to Indiana's House Minority Leader. News 8 government reporter Garrett Berquist found out what it's really like to attend the biggest political speech of the year.
Every member of the U.S. House gets to bring one special guest to State of the Union. And for House Minority Leader Phil Giaquinta, that invitation came from an old colleague.
Even though they're from opposing parties, Giaquinta worked with now Congressman Jim Banks when Banks was in the state Senate.
He called me and offered me the opportunity to go, and I'm one that has always respected the institution and these type of events with the speeches, and I thought, what really kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity to go.
Both parties held receptions ahead of the speech. Giaquinta went to both and ran into Transportation Secretary and former South Bend Mayor Pete Buttigieg, among others.
Which was really fun to see him again, and just always giving a pitch too for funding for Indiana while I'm out there making a business trip. So.
By 8 o'clock, it was time to get to his seat.
It was packed. I mean, I don't know how many people it hold, but we were trying, in fact, the person next to me, we were trying to guess maybe 1,000, something like that. But again, as I said, there's just a lot of anticipation in the air of what the president was going to say.
Giaquinta says there actually was a lot of bipartisan standing applause. He particularly noted President Joe Biden's comments about semiconductor manufacturing. Indiana Senator Todd Young played a key role in passing that legislation. Giaquinta says attending State of the Union is something he'll never forget.
It's an opportunity that I never really thought I would have the opportunity to do, and so I was glad to do it. And it's for someone like me who, my dad served in the legislature, and then I followed him in his seat. So we have this respect for the institution and the process.
Giaquinta says if you're ever invited to be someone's special guest at State of the Union, take a couple of days and make a trip out of it. He says make sure you get out and explore D.C. At the State House, Garrett Berquist, Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook.
All right, coming up, balloons, documents, and disciplinary action. Our panel delves into this week's top headlines. All right, welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome back two members of Indiana's best political team, Democrat Arielle Brandy and Republican Whitley Yates. Ladies, good to see you. Let's begin with the uproar over the Chinese spy balloon. The State Department, as you know, says the balloon had sophisticated signals intelligence gathering capabilities. And we now know that the Chinese government has sent many such balloons to the Western Hemisphere. Now, Arielle, I'll start with you on this one. Should the Biden administration have acted sooner, such as before the balloon reached the United States?
I mean, I understand some of the concerns that, the Biden administration had over making sure that before they shot this down, that it was in a place in which no, human or civilian lives were going to be harmed. But I do think that it is also a misstep on our behalf to not have done something sooner. I mean, to let something like that enter our country's hemisphere, I mean, it has concerns for me as someone who is a Democrat. I think we need to be more on top of things like this, especially when we're seeing more intrusive measures happening upon our data, being hacked, things like that. We know that this is not uncommon, but I do think that we had to and should have moved a little bit swiftly on this effort. It's something that definitely concerns me.
Whitley, several of these balloons reportedly came near the U.S. during the Trump administration. Does the former president bear any responsibility for things getting to this point?
Yeah, I don't know, because if he didn't know that these balloons came near, and the fact that this information was found out in a different administration, it's hard to say. But one thing that I will say is we have to be more vigilant as a country, making sure we're protecting our national security and the sovereignty of our country. So responding to the spy balloon, I don't even like calling it the spy balloon, but responding to anything that's in our aircraft that is not sent from us, it's supposed to be there. It is incumbent upon any administration, any leader of this country to take swift action to protect us here.
Yeah. In other news, federal authorities were back at the former Vice President Mike Pence's home to search for more classified documents here in Indiana. They found some as well on Friday. Meanwhile, Pence is expected to visit Iowa next week. Whitley, could this undermine a potential 2024 bid for the presidency?
You know what I'm going to say? If it doesn't undermine President Biden being able to run again, I don't think it's going to undermine Mike Pence trying to run for president or any of his political aspirations. I think what we've seen from President Trump, former President Trump, to President Biden, to now Vice President Pence, is that we have to take the security of these documents very seriously in each and every case, and making sure that we get classified information away from the leaders who were once in power, or leaders who don't have access or shouldn't have access to that information, is the top priority.
Arielle, should Pence face any disciplinary action over the documents?
I mean, if we're going to apply it to everyone thus far, then I think so. I think the issue we run into, like what you mentioned, is like we have to do better at making sure that these classified documents do not make it outside of the walls in which they're supposed to be in. I know that it's supposedly pretty common that this has happened, but unfortunately for me, I mean, it just has to stop, full stop. Now, we did see a difference in how, Trump handled this investigation and having these documents versus how Biden administration went about it. Now, while there are stark differences between the two, at the end of the day, it still shouldn't have happened. And so I think what we have to remember is that these documents are classified. They need to stay where they're supposed to. And we have to do better going forward, whether you are running for a public office, trying to be in the highest office of the land, or you currently hold it. We have to make sure that we're holding each other accountable and making sure that across the board that we are conducting these investigations and making sure that it does not happen again. It can't happen again.
Right. Speaking of 2024, ladies, former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley expected to launch her presidential bid on Wednesday. Arielle, how worried should Democrats be if Haley is the nominee?
I don't think that we have to be worried. I think at the end of the day, DeSantis is the one that needs to be worried at this point on the GOP side. I mean, we saw that Nikki Haley had announced, a while ago that if Trump was going to run, that she wasn't going to put her hat in the ring, but she has decided to move forward with it. I don't think that it's a concern for Democrats. I mean, right now, we just saw that Biden gave a really strong State of the Union, and I have full confidence that if he decides to run in 2024, which he has said that he would, I think that we are in a good spot, and I don't see there being any competition in that way.
Whitley, similar question to you. How do you gauge Haley's primary chances, especially against former President Donald Trump and potentially Pence even?
Yeah, you know what? Nikki Haley, she's a strong, influential leader. She was governor. She's been ambassador to the United Nations. And I think what that really stands for is freedom and leadership, both at home and abroad. And so I do think being a female challenger on the Republican side of things, that she presents a viable option. Now, when it comes to Trump and DeSantis, I don't know where we're going to be. I'm still waiting to see if DeSantis will actually put his name in the ring, or if all we're doing is cannon fodder each and every day, assuming that he is. So right now, we know it's between former President Donald Trump and Nikki Haley.
I want to shift the conversation to the State House now. A House committee approved a bill to prevent child services from removing a child solely because their parents don't provide gender transition treatment or affirm their identity if they are transgender. Whitley, advocates for LGBTQ youth say that almost always accompanies other forms of abuse or neglect. So why cut off a potential escape route for these kids?
I think the bill affirms the rights and the responsibilities of parents to raise their children in a manner that they see fit. It does absolutely nothing from preventing DCS, from ensuring that their children are safe and protected. The truth is, when a child is no longer a child, then they can make their own decisions. But until then, we allow the parents to make the decisions for them. So if a child is in danger, or there is some type of physical abuse or emotional abuse happening to that child, then I think DCS has the ability to be able to step in accordance with the law.
Ariel, shouldn't there be a limit to when the state can take someone's child away, in your opinion?
I mean, I think right now what we're seeing is that the GOP is running this continuous attacks against the LGBTQ community, and more specifically our trans youth. This is not the first time that we've seen an onslaught of legislation coming up like this, but this more specifically is harmful because it does put trans youth in a position in which they could have continued abuse happening in their household. We have to hold people accountable for that. So not providing the opportunity for that to be stopped, and not having DCS, come in and to be able to provide our youth, our trans youth, with the resources that they need is concerning to me. We know that the LGBTQ community is under attack and has been under attack, specifically in the state of Indiana. So I think by providing this even more scrutinized lens for trans youth, really, for me, makes it harmful, not only for that community, but for all children that are put into this system. Are we going to pick and choose and put an asterisk aside which children we decide to save in the state of Indiana? I would hope not. I hope that we're going to move forward in making sure that we're an inclusive state, and that means including trans youth in that process.
Whitley, I'll let you respond to that.
Yeah, I don't think that this bill does anything that puts trans youth in a position to be objectified or abused. And the truth of the matter is, when I tell my child no, the answer is no. And if she was able to call DCS on me because she wanted to go outside in a mini skirt when it's snowing outside, and I said no, and they told me that I was then abusing my child, we would have problems. In this same case, if the parents don't agree that the child should be getting any type of transgender surgeries or any type of that medical practice, why is them saying no then all of a sudden they're being abusive, or this is physical, or we need to remove the child? Let's think about this in terms of all situations and not just this one.
Ariel, I'll let you respond too. Final word on this topic.
At the end of the day, I just want to see the GOP stop putting these harmful attacks on the LGBTQ community. It feels like time and time again, every single general session, we see this happen. At what point are we just going to stop and move forward at making sure that this state is inclusive? We need to be protecting all Hoosiers, and that means LGBTQ Hoosiers, and more specifically our trans youth.
Attorney General Todd Rokita is reportedly under investigation from the Indiana Disciplinary Commission. This comes amid his investigation into abortion doctor Caitlin Bernard. Ariel, doesn't Rokita have the right to ensure doctors follow Indiana's rules and regulations?
Time and time again, Todd Rokita in the situation where he's continuously being investigated for ethical concerns. I mean, we saw the attacks that he specifically had on Dr. Caitlin Bernard, and the story around the 10-year-old coming to the state of Indiana to receive a legal abortion in providing medical care. I mean, At what point, I now have the question for Whitley, is the GOP going to hold Todd Rokita accountable for these attacks?
Go ahead, Whitley, respond quickly.
And sticks and stones may break his bones, but so far none of the investigations have hurt him. And that's the problem. The problem is people are attacking Todd Rokita consistently, and the investigations haven't stuck. In this case, he announced that he was going to be investigating this doctor. He eventually dropped the suit and didn't investigate the doctor. And I think that this is just a witch hunt into Todd Rokita.
Okay.
But if he has had an ethical issue, I do believe that the court of law should prevail. But if he hasn't, I think it's water under the bridge.
We'll see what happens there. We'll see what happens there. On a lighter note, it's Super Bowl Sunday. I want to get your picks, ladies. Ariel,
Hey,
who?
I'm looking forward to the great food that we are going to have for the Super Bowl party. I don't particularly have a pick when it comes to a team. So I'm looking forward to the Rihanna
Eagles
concert.
all day, baby. Eagles all day.
Oh, come on. I say go Chiefs.
All day.
All right, ladies, enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll talk soon. Thank you. We'll be right back. All right, thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. You can also find our brand new All Indiana Politics podcast. It's part of the All Indiana Podcast Network over at wishtv.com. Enjoy the Super Bowl and have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.